When I was 13 years old, I used to say, I'm not a genius, but I've got all the feelings of one. We all have boxes. Type B. How fast this God's light turns over the measured flow in the war of us now. Icord. 7 seconds. This report of the Harport sick. At present calculation, must we help this bird god take flight? It's amazing, says Bach. I'm transcribing Jimi Hendrix for harpsichord. Some of those solos, what I was looking for in the Goldberg. Laura C. chord, wood harp C quarter, but until now, we would refuse to invent. Bach explained about fugues, said Laura, you don't need to understand the mechanism. Just believe in fugue. Believe in fugue. Believe in fugue. All together now. No, one after another. Okay, believe in fugue. At last, Johann, I must ask you, tell me of that place you have been bringing things back. I held Laura's hand, and we walked through the pines. All we have, she said. Maybe now the moon shines through on Laura and I from that side of the harpsichord. what we can believe in is this. Harpsichord, moon, spoon, June tune. Harpsichord, moon, spoon, June tune. Harpsichord, moon, spoon, June. I'm harpsick, chordiform. I'm aching for you. Struck with boon mindness. I've moon blindness. Look into the heart starry chord night. See the sky. Don't you know that this evening is starring you and I? Harpsichorder? Okay, harpsichorder. I read a harpsichorder with cheese. One harp side order of fries.
Period. Comma. 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 Inverted comma. Inverted comma. 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 Hyphen. Comma. Comma. Period. That was Shakespeare's Sonnet 116, with all the words taken out. They get in the way anyway. I'm so really very happy that you are all here. It's a real honor to have you here, and thank you for all of the performances. That was really spectacular. I'm going to have to improvise. I wrote a careful list of everything I was going to say. My articulate list of gratitude and thanks, which of course I left at home, which I think is actually a useful kind of aesthetic statement about my practice and maybe how I proceed in the world and how I don't know, fill out tax forms. But anyway, I'm really grateful for everybody for being here, and I'll talk more about that later. It's really remarkable that for me to have this book, I mean, to me it's really so beautiful. I'm so astounded how lovely it looked, and also I didn't pick the pieces. Alessandro Porco picked the pieces, and so this is a remarkable thing. He is, what a dream to, as a writer, to have somebody who, I think he read everything I ever wrote. And wrote this amazing essay at the beginning, and just he was so thoughtful and just so engaged in the work. I'm just so immensely grateful. And also I see Paul Vermeersch back there, who is the Chief High Lord Editor at Walzac and Wynne, and so whose idea this was, and also thank you, Paul. I'm immensely grateful for that. It's an amazing thing to see a book with work from when I was starting from when I was 19 up to now, which is, what am I, 55? So that's a long span, and I think it's kind of remarkable kind of gift to think of me as 20 or anybody as 20 thinking about someone looking back 30 something years later, that some of this work was okay. You just keep at it. This work, that it's kind of an amazing thing that just to keep. Sometimes you stumble on really good stuff, and sometimes it's just that kind of being part of being able to have a life in writing is an amazing thing. I met Stuart and Margaret back then when I was 18, something like that. So it's an amazing thing to share this with you, and I would certainly say part of your model in well, I don't know what you call it, peer mentorship, but that's certainly what it feels like. I've learned a lot from you and to be in this path together. Okay, enough about that. Let's talk about rabbis. A rabbi, a schoolboy, and a tailor walk into a bar. Both the rabbi and the tailor order a drink, but the schoolboy tells this story. He says, imagine yourself to be a leaf. Imagine yourself to be turning gold. The sound of your hands as they move through water. The sound of your feet walking on dry land. Once, when I was 17, I did not do my homework. I became a leaf on a tree in a shopping center. I became a discount store. On Tuesday, I was selling shoes, videotapes, German sausage, when a tall blue bird was born from my shoulder blades. I became light as a 5 or a 6 carried by air. I was a leaf turning onto a highway from a street in the suburbs. I was a blood cell spinning in the veins of my tongue. I read the menu out loud, pronouncing each word. The wind picked up signals from Jupiter, and a rock that was on my chest became a family of 4, then a group of stars in the constellation Orion. I never wanted to become immortal, but it came to me so clearly. I parked my car behind Loblaws and knew I would never die. I always found places like parking lots in malls, it's kind of numinous, it's strange, especially at night, strange. These are outside of the mainstream with the kind of lighting and the lines sort of as if they're signaling to people flying overhead, somehow marking a strange, it just seemed like this other space in between modes of existence, I guess. So I guess that's why it made me think of immortality. Fragments from the frag pool. A frog jumps into a pond the size of itself. A frog jumps. The division of pond and frog breaks down. The pond is identical in size and shape to the frog. In its formative stages, the pond was a drop of water. Seeing it suddenly glisten, one could easily have mistaken it for a tadpole. The pond leaps, surrounding the frog like a raincoat. It is believed that the pond opened before the actual and apparently sudden impact of the frog. As the frog ponds, the pond frogs. The moment of illumination is not that instant when the frog hits the surface of the pond. It is that moment when the frog knows it is going to leap. That moment when the pond prepares to open. It is that moment when the path between frog and pond first finds its form, arching from lily pad to the filigreed edge of broken meniscus. We are deceived by the sound of water. That poem was actually published by Mr. Stuart Ross in his Proper Tales Press. It was a beautiful little chapbook, actually, about this size. So this was the first chapbook that I did. It's called Edwin. So it's 1985, replete with large blown-up typewriter font, because that was the latest in typography available to someone such as me. So it was my Seraph of Nottingham press, which is a little small press that I kept up to this day. So here's that piece. Edwin. If Edwin, my eldest brother, had ever been born, he would have been a year older than me. My father, a medical student, had his study beneath the stairs. His window, a basement window, and his specimens sealed in jars. A tiny fetus in a translucent sack. A small fetus, pale-fisted, white. Edwin. I point him out to my friends. Look, that's Edwin, my older brother, if he'd been born. I think he would have been taller, thinner than me, and with short hair. Edwin going before me, growing taller, moving through the neighborhood. He'd score goals, talk to our neighbors at their side door. I know Dad would have taken Edwin to the golf driving range, then let him come with to the pub. Dad sawed down a club for him in the garage, then taped up the handle. My father showing him how to hold it. Line up your thumbs like this, Edwin. Down at the other end of the street. Hey, that's Edwin's younger brother. Okay, you're at 1002. A miscarriage. They tried to have Edwin before they had me. It was like he went away to a foreign country. And though he was alive, we never saw him, just knew what he was like. And that baby in the jar was Edwin before he was born, and what he left behind him when our thoughts of Edwin grew bigger. I miss him. I think of all the times we could have had, all the things I could have asked him. What would it have been like to have him in the next room with his door open, doing homework? I don't know what happened to him after we moved to Canada. My father didn't have a study until we moved again, and there wasn't a shelf below the window like before. I still imagine Edwin back on that shelf with some kids looking in. They go into the street and play football until they're called home for supper. I love that in this Alex was, which I agree with, pick things that are prose poems or things that are like little stories or things like what is a poem anyway, and I'm really glad that he was willing to consider, I guess what I consider, which is pretty much everything is a poem. Snowshoes. The Slurpee Paradigm. Sometime after midnight at the Okie Dokie School of Philosophy, Happy, the philosopher's dog, feels the end of his life trudging toward him, while the philosophers drain the last of their espressos and continue to talk philosophy. It would make our lives easier, Joy Slack says, if we were Slurpee dispensers. Happy Jacket flicks something he can't identify from his tweed. You mean the actual dispensing machines, he asks, or the ones entrusted with Slurpee dispensing? Beneath the table, Happy shifts. Dog mortality, like a year in the life of a dog, is 7 times more intense. His thoughts collect in one of those thought balloons used to notate the mind of dogs. And it is usually sloppier and without the benefit of one's own species gathered by the death basket. Happy entertains the possibility of gnawing on Joy Slack's scuffed brown shoe. Consider what else in this life is cold, colorful, and slushy. I mean, beside married life. Ha, ha, ha. Joy Slack's laugh is a rocking chair on a primeval porch. The Slurpee Paradigm is what I shall call my new book. Happy Jacket flicks something else he can't identify from his tweed. A perfect follow-up to the slushy truth, I'd say. Another thought balloon forms above the head of the philosopher's dog. There are more joints in the bones of dogs. Ergo, more places for the bones of dogs to ache, it says. I suppose since I made a reference to married life, it would be a good time to thank my wife for being with me and supportive for many years, since I was like 18. So it's when we got married, my mother, and it was a joke, so my wife had just graduated from law school, and so my mom gave me a card that says, "Congratulations on marrying the person we always hoped you'd become." just so there. So that, you know. But thank you, Beth. I definitely couldn't have done without you. This is not related to that last statement about gratitude, but our son, when he was little, used to say, "Well, you know, Mommy makes the paper money and Daddy makes the change." So, life is a poet. Moon, baboon, canoe. A baboon rents a canoe and smashes into the moon. Fragments of moon, baboon, canoe rain down. As you breathe, your lungs fill with moon, baboon, canoe. Moon, baboon, canoe inside each breath. People who I love, you say. People about whom I care. Moon, baboon, canoe. Moon, shoelace, canoe. Baboon, baboon. A few years ago, I was speaking to someone online about their interest in Sesame Street's The Count. You know, The Count is 1, 2, 3, marvelous peanut butter sandwiches, that guy. And she said that because he had a Hungarian, a Transylvanian accent like a Count, that she assumed because her family was Hungarian and were Holocaust survivors, that the Count was also a Holocaust survivor. I found that really funny, but also very moving that this little girl would look at this TV show and see this sort of like slightly unhinged purple Muppet speak to her about her family's experience, about her parents and her grandparents, and somehow, what was it about the Count that resonated with her that it made sense? So I wrote her a piece. Sesame Street's Count is my grandfather, for Jennifer Glasser. What are the numbers, Count? Your Transylvanian cackle seems Yiddish to me, your unhinged delight. Your bitter joy enumerates the world, an inventory of what's there, what hasn't been destroyed. The time I'm waiting for those numbers in your kitschy voice, which is my parents' grandparents' voices. You're counting, chanting the numbers, the Shema at the Warsaw Ghetto, the empty chairs at the Seder, numbers on my grandfather's arm, my grandmother's. To count the future with thunder, to remember the past with lightning. I see you, Count, a survivor, the chortling paradox that there are things and that they can be counted. I wrote this